In this podcast episode, we want to introduce you to our BCEN friend Kristen Gilmore. Come along as Michael Dexter and Holly Briggs talk with Kristen about her journey in emergency nursing leading up to her newest venture into nurse well-being. It's sure to be an encouraging conversation to our valued listeners. This episode is called Blazing a Trail for Nurse Well-Being.
Hello, and welcome to the BCEN and Friends podcast, where we hold interesting conversations about learning with a range of thought leaders, BCEN certification holders, and industry professionals. But most importantly, to create value and insight for you, our professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. We hope you find our discussions interesting, informative, sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always valuable. I'm Holly Briggs, a professional development specialist at BCEN and one of your hosts for today. I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Dexter, Director of Professional Development at BCEN. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Holly. I'm excited to have another great episode today.
Me too. In this episode of BCEN and Friends, we have Kristen Gilmore, an experienced emergency nurse from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her leadership and passion have brought her to a new role involving nurse well-being. Michael, could you please introduce us to our BCEN and friend, Kristen?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Kristen obtained her Bachelor of Science in Nursing in 2004, and in 2014, she graduated with her master's degree in nursing. Kristen's career has included work as an ED nurse, a clinical nurse manager, nursing supervisor, nurse manager, and clinical operations coordinator. And throughout her career, Kristen has been the recipient of multiple clinical and leadership awards and has served as a mentor to many others. Her passion for education and mentorship led her to also teach nursing school. Kristen is now the Inaugural Program Manager for Nurse Wellbeing at Jefferson Northeast in Pennsylvania. The newly established Institute for Nurse Wellbeing is dedicated to transforming culture to ensure a positive nurse practice work environment. Outside of her day-to-day work, Kristen is also the current president of the Philadelphia chapter of the Pennsylvania Emergency Nurses Association. So, Kristen, welcome to the BCEN and Friends podcast. It is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Hi, Holly and Michael. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity.
Well, you're welcome. It's great to have you. And I definitely skipped over some stuff about you because I wanted you to tell us and tell the listeners a little bit more about your nursing career, your nurse journey, because you've done quite a bit as a nurse.
I have. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, I went to undergrad nursing school at Holy Family University, where I graduated in 2004. And during that time, right before graduation, I was able to be an ED tech in the emergency department at Albert Einstein Medical Center in Philadelphia. So during that time, guys, in 2004, there was a nursing shortage very similar to what we're experiencing now. And I was very fortunate that I was approached by my clinical nurse manager who said, "Hey, do you want to work here when you graduate?" And I said, "Yes." And he essentially said, "Go upstairs, fill out this form, and you're hired." And that was it for me. And I've never looked back. So I started at Albert Einstein, the emergency department in 2004. And I was fortunate enough very early on in my career to be able to gain leadership experience. I was a charge nurse there, followed by a clinical manager there. It was also during that time where I was really interested in education. So it was like a period of my career where I was enjoying leadership, but I wanted to really test the waters of education. So I was able to still work at Einstein at the bedside shortly thereafter that. And I also spent some time teaching both clinical and classroom at what was Episcopal School of Nursing, a diploma program here in Philadelphia that unfortunately has since closed. It was such an amazing and rewarding experience that I definitely treasure and hold in my heart. After that school closed, I was able to continue to work at Einstein as a clinical nurse. And then I also began working at what is now Jefferson Bucks County campus and Frankfort campuses as a nursing supervisor. I was very fortunate to work in the emergency department at the Bucks campus as well. From there, I continued on my nursing leadership journey, and I moved into being the nurse manager for the emergency department at Nazareth Hospital, which is also in Philadelphia. During my time at Nazareth, I was able to collaborate with a vast scope of practitioners and individuals. And it was during that time that I was able to become part of a team that allowed our hospital to become PCI certified. It was such a rewarding time. During my time at Nazareth, I also started to miss working in that academic environment that I was used to in my past that treated high acuity and trauma populations. So on from Nazareth, I moved to Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in Center City, where I was the clinical operations coordinator. And I spent the next 4 years working night shift with just an amazing group of healthcare professionals. I left Jefferson for only about a year to be a nursing supervisor, back to my roots, back at Einstein, before I returned back to the ED at Jefferson as the administrative supervisor on the night shift. During my time as the administrative supervisor, I was fortunate enough to become involved in what is called the RISE team, Resiliency in Stressful Events, and to receive training in emotional first aid. It was after that training that I really started to become interested in how we as a nursing profession could enhance our overall well-being and support our nursing peers. In September, I was able to align that desire to support my nursing peers and overall wellness of the nursing team by becoming the inaugural program manager for nurse wellbeing here at Jefferson Northeast. And like you said, Michael, I am the current president for the Philadelphia chapter of the Emergency Nurses Association. So my career has been very robust, and I have been absolutely blessed to have such a wonderful, varied level of opportunity.
Man, that is quite a journey you just took us on. And I love that you kind of, yes, you went here and did this and gained knowledge and experience here, there, but it's kind of like it all culminated to what's led you to the role you're in now as this inaugural program manager for nurse wellbeing. And saying that, so what does that really mean? Like, can you give us some insight into this new role? And really, can you just kind of tell us how emergency nursing can contribute to a role like this?
Oh, absolutely. So the Inaugural Program Manager for Nurse Wellbeing is a part of the Institute for Nurse Wellbeing here at Jefferson Health Northeast campuses. Our CNO, Michelle Connolly, who I report directly to, recognized early on the need for services to really support our nursing team's mental, emotional, and physical well-being. We were fortunate enough that Jefferson Northeast was awarded a $7 million grant that resulted in this position. So there was folks that really truly believed, also outside of Michelle, that this was something that the nursing team here at J&E really deserved and had a need for. Having a strong clinical background in emergency nursing and leadership definitely contributes to this role as the program manager for nurse wellbeing. As an ER nurse, guys, we're taught to triage. We're taught that, ability to be able to prioritize both patients and, our items that we need to do on our to-do list. We're super flexible in our roles because we have to be in order to be an ER nurse. We're definitely experts in de-escalation techniques, just, based upon the kind of patient populations that we treat. As ER nurses, we see folks on their worst day. So de-escalation is definitely something that is part of our toolkit. We learn as ER nurses what it means to truly listen to a patient's story. And we have this mighty sense of resilience, and we understand what true empathy means in our role as ER nurses. We also tend to have this kind of knack for sensing that, individuals have a need without maybe necessarily those folks speaking that they have that need. Just that sixth sense that we have. In my role as the program manager, I've been able to prioritize my plans for the program and the nursing staff to support their needs. I travel back and forth to 3 hospitals and sometimes to other sites. So I'm able to be flexible in the areas that I serve. One of the things that I say, to all of our nursing groups is, it doesn't matter if I'm at a different campus. I'm always willing to move to a different campus or FaceTime or do Zoom, whatever our staff needs here at J&E, I'm willing to shift to support those needs. And I think that definitely goes back to your ER roots of being flexible. I'm able to speak with nursing staff after experiencing violence in the patient care areas. I'm able to follow up on their well-being after those interactions, because unfortunately we know as ED nurses that we do tend to face those kind of cases. And, I want to make it comfortable for folks to have those conversations about what just happened, and also to bring a sense that it is not normal for those things to happen in the workplace. Active listening and authentic presence really has been a cornerstone in my current role. And I would not have had such a strong skill set in what I do had I not practiced as an ER nurse for almost 2 decades.
So, Kristen, you talk about changing really the culture of these 3 different facilities that you're working at. And I know you mentioned active listening and your work as an ED nurse. And there's so many times in the ED when we kind of get in the grind of the day to day, but then there's other times when patients come in, and you mentioned like the violent ones, but there's also times when patients come in, maybe they're being worked up for a pulmonary embolism and they code right in front of us, or an unexpected pediatric death or something. So there's other components to that. And I've seen in the past where we do try to implement things like debriefings or nurse wellness, and there seems to be a hesitancy, not only by nursing staff, but sometimes the physician buy-in is tough, and sometimes administrative buy-in is tough. So in your role, how have you seen some of these challenges or other challenges I haven't mentioned? And what have you done to face some of these challenges of cultural norms that really need to be broken?
Yeah, Michael, you're absolutely right. There is definitely that disconnect of recognizing the importance of actions like debriefing after significant emotional events. My role as a program manager of nurse wellbeing is still very much so in its infancy stages. I've only been here at J&E in this role for about 14 weeks now. But I see, as a nursing staff, I recognize how challenging it can be to reach out for help. Like, I talked about earlier is, I feel like there's kind of a stigma around stigmatism around having that kind of conversation where folks are admitting, I feel vulnerable, or I just, I'm having some challenges dealing with the emotional piece of what I just witnessed or what I took part in. So I think that the biggest challenge of this kind of program is people reaching out for help, is individuals taking that platform to say, you know what, I need to reach out and speak with someone just about what I experienced. So I think that has been kind of developed in our culture of nursing, that we've kind of embraced that whole, like, you need to suck it up and move on and, go to the next room and see your next patient. And, we never really spoke about understanding our feelings and what to do with them after we just witnessed, like you said, maybe that person that coded in front of us, or a pediatric code, and I'm hoping that, we can change that learned behavior and start to shift the focus onto self-care. I want nursing teams, here at J&E to know that it is normal to have strong emotional responses to events that we are involved in daily at work. And in addition, it's not only is it normal to have those responses, but it's absolutely okay to speak about it. So I think, Michael, you identified like one of our hurdles is, just getting folks to do that buy-in. And I think it is just kind of slowly being authentically reaching out to folks and saying, hey, I'm here. I know what you're going through. I was at the bedside up until 14 weeks ago. And, just saying, it's okay to talk about it. I'm a safe space. It's confidential. And really, helping folks realize that sitting with these kind of things just tend to build up over time and, can really be harmful to their well-being. So, slowly but surely, just, going out there, creating relationships, being present, and just letting folks know that what we're really here for is to support them. I tell the nursing staff when I go out and I'm rounding on the units, I don't have a department anymore. I don't have direct reports anymore. I work for all of them. So the thousands of nurses, that are employed here at Jefferson Northeast, I work for them.
Yeah. So if you have somebody, I think it would be great if I worked with a program manager for nurse wellbeing, but let's just say the vast majority, I would assume, that are listening do not have this resource. You had mentioned some things about speaking up and being involved and that it's okay to say that you're not okay. Do you have any other tips that you'd want to share with those listening that maybe don't have this program at their facility, or maybe they're trying to start a program and you just have some tips for nurses on how to help that program move forward, or how to help their self-care move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a nurse leader, I kind of felt like I was, for lack of better words, the mom, of my folks at my last ER. And I, absolutely adored them. And I recognized that they were struggling. And that is how I ended up becoming involved in the RISE program that I spoke about earlier, because I felt like we needed almost our own employee assistance program in the ER, just because of the nature of what we were seeing and what we were experiencing. And also at that time in that emergency department, we were also experiencing increased volumes. We were starting to see an increase in our penetrating trauma. We were starting to see incidents that you would consider mass casualties. So just a lot of changes. And that's how I started recognizing, like, hey, we need to do something to support each other. And I, as a leader, need to do something to support my team. So for folks that don't have this program, I think really there's so much literature out there. There is such great support systems through the American Nurses Association for framework. For this type of program. Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation is another piece of the American Nurses Association's platform that really can give you different areas in life that you can focus on related to stress management, related to just overall well-being. So it really does give you a little bit of a start of exactly, what is nurse wellness? Because, Michael, nurse wellness could be defined very differently by everyone. What I consider to be wellness might not be what you consider. So I think really identifying what a unit needs, and then trying to implement just small changes, whether it is debriefing after every shift in the emergency department by having, like, in the form of a huddle, looking to see if your employer has an employee assistance program that is external to what goes on in your department, but is something that maybe they have as an organization is always great as well. Looking at your chaplaincy program, that is another source of support for our nursing staff. The folks in many of the chaplaincy programs do kind of go through emotional support training. So looking into those possibilities would probably be very helpful to folks who maybe don't have a program manager for nurse well-being quite yet. And I'm very hopeful that, out of this program, Janie and I will start to make a kind of a platform for what nurse wellness and nurse wellness programs should look like moving forward for our peers and other organizations.
Well, Kristen, it sounds like you're starting down a path that maybe is not, completely like defined yet, but I think by you like blazing this trail and really setting things up, trying some things out, I think what you're doing is you're creating what will be a roadmap that other people will be able to kind of follow after. And, yes, it'll be their own take to meet the needs of their organization and of their staff. But, you're kind of helping to develop that framework of what your role would look like, So I think that's awesome.
Thank you so much, Holly.
I think that's awesome that an ER nurse is doing something so different, but yet at the same time, so needed, especially in our profession. So I know you talked about the challenges of your new program and some tips about maybe where we could get started or at least be thinking about it. In the last 14 weeks, can you tell us, I mean, obviously, not breaking confidentiality, but has there been a success or successes that have really just kind of pushed you and made you feel like, yes, I'm in the right place?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of small wins. My greatest success, I would say at this time, is the one-on-one sessions that I've been fortunate enough in being able to be involved with the nursing staff. I feel that experience has really led to some great conversations with individuals, normalizing support and normalizing, supporting our emotional and mental well-being. I've been able to work with security and a vendor, and we were able to identify, we use strong line devices here at Jefferson Northeast, and that's a device that we use as a safety measure. For folks that aren't familiar with it, it's just a button that we can push when we require additional support from our peers in security. And we identified that our emergency medicine providers did not have strong line. And we also identified that our cath lab peers did not have the strong line badges. So we were able to work over the past few weeks to get the education rolled out to those folks so that they could get the badges. So just quite a number of individuals that will now have that opportunity to have that badge, so that if they need to, push the button because they need some assistance, that will be available to them. So it's a big safety tool, and we're very proud of that here at J&E. We are currently working on what we're calling loosely the respite room at our Frankfurt campus. So part of the grant that I spoke about earlier that funds my position, $1 million of that is also for capital items. So as part of that, we are using some of that capital fund to build the respite room at the Frankfurt campus. And our goal is to build one of these rooms at each of the campuses because they are so much, very well needed. It's going to be a space of quiet, a space of peace, and it'll be for the staff to use at their discretion. So, before they come in for their shift, after their shift, during their shift, we have really tried to involve the staff in the development of that room because I really think that that's very important. The staff, it should be a place where, they're able to go for a few moments to kind of relax and re-energize. So they have been really instrumental in helping develop this space. They've been included in the phases of planning, and we actually have a meeting on Monday to kind of start looking at what exactly are the items that are going to be in the room and the structure of the room and such. So that's been really wonderful to be involved in. I've been able to develop and implement a process for follow-up with the nursing staff that have been involved in what we call Code Orange here at Jefferson Northeast. And that code is utilized when a patient or visitor requires de-escalation. So I've also been very fortunate, speaking of de-escalation, I've been very fortunate to have been involved in a few de-escalation classes recently for the ED staff during the month of December, where we were able to provide some education related to the importance of de-escalation in our practice as emergency nurses. And then during this past week, I was able to connect with a pet therapy group in the area. So we're looking to do pet therapy here at Jefferson Northeast. I think that there is such a wonderful, there's just such wonderful feedback in the literature that looks at, the day-to-day stress of nurses and how it is improved, during pet therapy rounds. So I've been able to speak with 2 women over the past week that are very willing to do all 3 of our campuses. So hopefully soon we will have pet therapy at each campus at least once a month to help support our nursing teams. So, like I said, little wins. And, as the weeks go on, things change and I'm able to reach out to more folks and connect with more people. And really the sky is the limit, Holly and Michael, for this program. And I'm really excited to look at what other successes we have in our future.
Well, it sounds like you have done quite a bit in the time that you've been in that role. So thank you for sharing all of that. And it sounds like you have a lot to be proud of. And I wanted to kind of turn the conversation just a little bit, and maybe it's all still related, I don't know, but you've done a lot of clinical care, you've had managerial education roles, you have your current role that you're in, but throughout your nursing career in general, is there a specific person or moment that's really impacted you and made you either change your practice or maybe just view things in a different way?
Yeah, I think when I think about, a person or a moment in my career that has impacted me, I think as ER nurses, we all have like those handful of patients that we've cared for that really remain with us in our practice. So I can share a story with you from my early years of practice. And I was an ER nurse. I was working 3 to 11 in a level 1 trauma center. From 3 to 7, I was assigned as the trauma nurse. And then from 7 to 11, I was assigned as the charge nurse. And during that 3 to 7 shift, a 12-year-old girl was placed in the hallway nearest the trauma bay for me to care for her. And upon further assessment, she was very tachycardic, kind of lethargic. So brought her into a private area to get her undressed and EKG. She continued to kind of decline. And unfortunately, moments later, went into cardiac arrest right there in front of me at 12 years old. Her grandmother was the one who had, been with her during her stay with us. And her grandmother was, witness to the whole process of just from the moment she walked through the door until this happened. Unfortunately, we coded her for over an hour and she unfortunately did not survive. This was a very impactful case for me for 2 reasons. It was during this incident that I really embraced engaging in families during these types of losses and participating in the development of like a memory box and things like that. It really made me realize as a nurse the impact that we can have on families during those grieving processes. and how we can support them during that very small window of time that we have with them. It also affected me because I received a card from that patient's mother weeks later, thanking me for the care that I provided for her child. So it was definitely something that has remained with me. And it is something that really makes me reflect on the emotional part of our job and the ability to have conversations about, again, what we see and what we do, but also the power that you as a nurse can have on outcomes of people and their families, even when there's a bad outcome. So yeah, that young lady will probably stay with me for my entire career.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I've heard somebody speak before about a similar situation. It was a child of theirs that passed away, and she was talking about just changing the situation in the trauma resuscitation room from a standard code to a way to celebrate the last moments of that individual's life and ways to really support the family and turn it into something good. And it's hard to think of in the moment, but impacts people for many, many years, and obviously impacts you as well. So thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, Kristen, I mean, while you were talking about that, I was sitting here filtering through some of the memories that I have being at the bedside, and whether was it a successful outcome, or whether it was unsuccessful, that person, if there was family there, really the shift in the focus needed to move to them and really like to meet their needs in that moment. When it was all said and done, to recognize that there were still going to be, on my end, that there were going to be feelings and thoughts and a response to what had happened that I also needed to deal with, and appreciate your willingness to not only speak about that, but then to give people that space to talk about their experiences and the things that they've been a witness to, and kind of start that process for them. So that way, again, it's to create that ability for them to cope in a healthy way so that they can continue to be a nurse, to do this profession that we get to do. And I think that, we can't do that if we neglect our well-being, if we just say like, well, that's not important. We have to put that as a priority as well.
Yeah, Holly, you're absolutely right. It does need to be a priority because we need to continue to have a nursing workforce. We need to continue to, have a strong profession. And that really is the only way to continue to do that, is to recognize our needs. Because, if our cup is not full, we most certainly can't pour it into others, I like to say. So we really need to be sure to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. My mom would always say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So
she's right.
Yeah. Most mamas are right. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Well, I am going to shift our conversation just a little bit more with a few rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Here we go. So what would you be doing if you were not in your current role? So no nursing. What would you do?
So I think if I wasn't in this role, I think that I would want to be like a clinical therapist. I think I would still be trying to support others, but maybe just in a different way.
I love it. I think you'd be good at that. I mean, really, I feel like people who learn like the skill of listening to hear what's really being said, I think that is, that's a skill for a lifetime. So I think you'd be great at it. Here we go. Current recommendations for a binge-worthy show or series.
Oh, that's a good one. I really like on Netflix, How to Get Away with Murder. It's a little old, but it's a really great series and keeps you on your toes.
Most myself and the listeners out there are always looking for a binge-worthy show or series because we're always finishing, I feel like I always finish whatever show I get into, and then either they don't make another of it, they don't make another season, or like it's going to be, 10,000 years before they come out with the other one. So then I'm like, what am I going to do? So thank you.
Absolutely right.
Okay. This one's a good one. I think it's kind of right up your alley. So self-care or stress relief go-to, like what helps you?
Okay. So a few things. So I love dogs, big dogs. I love big dogs. So I really have found it to be helpful for my emotional, mental well-being. I volunteer at one of the animal shelters in Philadelphia. And I don't get there as much as I used to when I work 312, still adjusting to the 5-day-a-week work week. But I find it really comforting to be with those animals who are in need. Just walking them and, having fun with them, letting them enjoy the outdoors for a while is really wonderful for me. I also really enjoy, and this is going to be a weird one, y'all, but I really find cleaning my house. It benefits my well-being. I don't know if it's just like that whole piece of just like cleaning and putting things away and creating, an environment kind of calm, but I love my new mop system. I know that sounds so nerdy, but it really has been helpful. So, hanging out with pit bulls and cleaning my house are really the ways that I focus on my wellness.
That is awesome, Kristen.
Yeah, you know what? Everybody has their own things. So whatever works for you, works for you. And I try to make sure that folks remember that, that what works for one doesn't work for all.
That's awesome. Yeah. One of my best friends, Sarah, she actually volunteers at the animal shelter in New Orleans. And I know how much joy it brings to her. I know how much joy it brings the animals. Like I'm like, they are so much better for having you there. And then another friend of mine, she is all about like cleaning and organizing, and like that helps her de-stress. And I need to like foster that relationship more. We need to grow to be best friends because I need some of that to like rub off on me. So then when I get stressed out, I'll just clean as opposed to like what I want to do, which is, make popcorn and like watch a new Netflix series. So, so to each their own, but I would I would benefit from some of your self-care strategies. So, another rapid fire question. What is your comfort food or meal that you really enjoy?
Always pizza. We are a Friday night pizza family. So I love pizza.
Oh my goodness. Is there like a particular, like what are you going to order? Like if I'm putting in your order, what are you going to order?
Well, I'm not going to name names on the podcast, but there's a fantastic place in Philadelphia that does this cheesesteak pizza. And I'm not like a huge like cheesesteak kind of girl, but my son brought it home once and I was absolutely in love with it. So, and it's nowhere near my home. So every once in a while it comes in as a treat, but that would be my go-to pizza, would be the cheesesteak pizza.
I have never had that, but next time I'm in Philly, I will have to look that up. So,
yeah, next conference.
Oh, I'll look for it. We'll split a slice. Do you have any other hobbies or interests that you could share with us?
Hobbies or interests? Well, I do try to read as much as I can, although again, still trying to work on my work-life balance with the 5-day-a-week work week. But I do enjoy reading. Restaurants with my family. We do that a lot, maybe at least once a week. We try to go out to eat together as a family. So those are two things that I really enjoy as well.
Sounds like you keep a very full work life and also balancing that out, which I know we're all working on that. So we're all works in progress, but
everyone is. Yep.
If our audience would like to follow you online, what social media platforms could they look you up on?
So they can look me up on Instagram. My Instagram name is Kristen, Kristen, the letter C, and then 1209.
Well, Kristen, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. And, when we got to the question about a comfort food and being where you're from, I was wondering if the cheesesteak would get brought in, and you threw out pizza and it threw me off, but then you pulled it back in for the win with the cheesesteak.
Yeah, it's a little take of the cheesesteak, I guess.
But thank you so much for sharing everything you did with us, not only some of those personal fun things, but all that you're doing for nurse well-being and the impact that you're having there in your area, and hopefully something that you can build that can be replicated across the nation. It would just be super cool to see that happen. So thank you for all that you're doing, and we appreciate getting the chance to meet you and talk with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Michael.
I want to take this time to thank Kristen for joining us for this episode of BCEN and Friends. Thank you so much, Kristen, for sharing your time, your professional journey, and your insight into nurse well-being with us. And to all of our listeners, we hope you will stay tuned as we continued with BCEN and Friends and bring you new and meaningful content and perspectives. If you have a suggestion for an episode, please email us at bcn@bcen.org. at bcn.org. I'm Holly Briggs, here with Michael Dexter, and on behalf of our entire BCN team, we thank and celebrate you for all that you're doing as professional nurses across the emergency spectrum. Until next time, we are out.